Welcome to the Hoodoo Chill podcast, the number one hoodoo and spirituality-based podcast bringing awareness to African American spirituality in a wide range of thought-provoking topics. I am Papa Seer, your host, your narrator, and your storyteller. Before the show begins, make sure you're subscribed or following the show so you don't miss out on any episodes. And as always, donations of love keep our podcast alive and give us the ability to upgrade the show, enhance our content, and most importantly, do what we love. You can use any link in the description to send your donation of love today. Now, let's start the show. Nestled in East Africa, Uganda is a country that captivates the imagination with its stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife, and vibrant communities. Known as the Pearl of Africa, Uganda is home to a population that encompasses various ethnic groups, each with its unique traditions, languages, and spiritual practices. As we delve into the lives of these saints, we will discover how their journey intertwines with the complex history of Uganda, from the reign of Mwanga II and the resistance against colonization to the spiritual fusion of traditional beliefs with Christianity. Uganda's story is one of resilience, cultural transformation, and the enduring power of faith. Buganda, the original name for Uganda, was a land with a rich tapestry of religious beliefs. By the mid-19th century, Islam had made its way into Uganda through various routes. One was the Buganda route in the 1840s, while the other was the northern Uganda route influenced by the Turco-Egyptian connections. The exact date of Islam's arrival in Buganda was 1844. On the other hand, the first Christian missionaries arrived in Buganda in 1877, sent by the CMS, or Church Missionary Society. Shortly after, the Roman Catholic mission was inaugurated by the White Fathers in 1879. Despite some rivalry between the missions, their early preaching was generally well received, especially at the court of King Mwanga II. However, it's important to know that these missionaries had underlying support from the European royal line, with their own plans for Uganda's future. Prior to the arrival of missionaries in the 1840s, Uganda was a land deeply rooted in its traditional religion. The knowledge and practice of Christianity or Islam were virtually non-existent. The introduction of these foreign religions had a significant impact on the cultural and religious landscape, as well as identity, shaping its history in profound ways. While Buganda had a patriarchal society, it's worth mentioning that women played a strong role in various aspects of society, including lineage and politics. In matters related to royal ascension, the lineage of women was particularly revered and considered significant. The Buganda pantheon of gods can be divided into two primary subcategories. The first category consists of guardian ancestor spirits, known as Balu Baale. These spirits were believed to protect and guide the community. For example, there was Lubiji, the spirit that looked after the Lubiji swamp around Lake Victoria. Another subcategory of spirits were the scare animal spirits called Amajiji. In addition to the pantheon of gods, the Buganda people had clans named after the abundant provision of nature, plants, and wildlife. If someone belonged to a particular clan, they would refrain from consuming the animal or plant associated with that clan. This practice helped prevent the depletion of species, ensuring that nature was protected from human abuse. However, with the arrival of monolithic Abrahamic religions like Christianity, the fear of Punisher spirits diminished. In ancient Buganda, A deceased person who was skilled or a great thinker during their lifetime was referred to as Labu Ba'ale, which meant a deceased genius. This concept represented the spirit of a dead thinker. On the other hand, the spirit of an ordinary deceased person was called Omuzimu. Within the Buganda pantheon, there were several different gods. Kibuka, the god of war, held a prominent position. Mukasa, the human spirit that presided over Lake Victoria, was considered the god of prosperity, harvest, fertility, and health. In addition, Mukasa was associated with divination and prophecies. Nalubaale represented Lake Victoria, and Wamala, the spirit of Lake Wamala, also held revered positions. Indwala was considered the god of smallpox, while Katonda, the supreme god, later became associated with the Christian concept of God. Katonda was regarded as the father and leader of the Buganda pantheon. Another important aspect of Buganda's spiritual beliefs involved the Muzimu, which were the spirits of the deceased and ancestors. The Muzimu were believed to reside near or around graves, but had the ability to travel any distance. These spirits were appeased through offerings and provided constant communication with their descendants. In certain instances, they materialized through possession. It's important to note that the Muzimu were not to be taken lightly. They were considered hot spirits, mischievous in nature, and often manifested when they felt slighted. Interacting with the Muzimu required caution and respect. Mwanga II of Buganda was born in 1868, ascended to the throne at the young age of 16. In the traditional Buganda society, the king held a revered position before the introduction of Christianity and Islam. The Kingdom of Buganda was deeply rooted in its own religion and culture, untouched by Christian and Muslim influences at the time. It is essential to highlight Mwanga's age during his reign. As a young king, he likely served as a figurehead, while the actual governance and lawmaking were carried out by the community's elders and council. Mwanga was most probably influenced or even directed by a group of older councilmen in making decisions for the kingdom. Understanding the story and history of Mwanga is crucial in comprehending the underlying truth behind the tragic events that unfolded. The Roman Catholic Church has portrayed Mwanga as a pedophile and sexual deviant, claiming that he maintained a harem of young boys for his pleasure. However, this vilification needs to be critically examined. Mwanga was crowned at the age of 16, and during the martyrdom, he was only 18. Additionally, the youngest victim was approximately 14 years old. If there were any same-sex relationships, they would have likely been with individuals of Mwanga's age or older. It is also important to note that Charles Lwanga, one of the martyrs, was 8 years older than Mwanga. Therefore, the allegation of pedophilia is unfounded, especially considering the source, a church institution with a long history of alleged and proven sexual abuse involving young girls, boys, nuns, and priests. Evangelism has often served as a justification for European nations to engage in global colonization, slavery, genocide, and war crimes. In the 18th century, evangelism was the guise used to pursue the land and resources belonging to the King of Buganda. The entry of the white missionaries, or spies as they were seen by Mwanga, into the country was primarily driven by this hidden agenda, often backed and funded by the British aristocracy. Mwanga resisted colonization for over a decade, fighting to preserve the cultural heritage and religion of the Kingdom of Buganda. Consequently, he was portrayed as a sexual deviant by the Roman Catholic Church, a tactic used to legitimize their intrusion into the lives of proud black people in a kingdom that predates modern Christianity. Now, let's turn our attention to one of the central figures in this tragic tale, Charles Lwanga, born on January 1st, 1860, and tragically passing away on June 3rd, 1886. Lwanga hailed from the Buganda tribe, the largest ethnic group in Uganda. Within the court of King Mwanga II of Buganda, Lwanga held positions of great responsibility and influence. He served as the chief of the royal pages, responsible for the care and guidance of the young boys serving in the court. Over time, his dedication and capabilities led him to be appointed as the major domo, a trusted figure who managed the affairs of the royal household. It was during this time that Lwanga's encounter with the Christian faith would shape the course of his life. On November 15th, 1885, he underwent a momentous event. Per Gerard, a Catholic priest baptized Lwanga, marking his entry into the Christian community. This act of baptism held profound significance, not only in terms of religious commitment, but also in the context of the turbulent times in Buganda. The clash between traditional beliefs and the growing presence of Christianity set the stage for the tragic events that would soon unfold. As we continue our journey through the life of Mwanga, we now reach a critical turning point that will forever alter his reign and ultimately seal his tragic fate. It was May 1886 when Mwanga issued a fatal order that would lead to a heartbreaking showdown. He commanded the converts in his court to make an impossible choice: renounce their newfound faith or submit unwavering obedience to his authority and kingdom. The consequences were devastating. At least 30 Catholic or Protestant converts paid the ultimate price for their beliefs. In June 1886, 22 men who embraced Catholicism were burned alive at Namugongo. These courageous souls became known as the Uganda Martyrs. Among them were Joseph Mukasa and Charles Lwanga, who held positions of influence in the court as masters of the pages. They had repeatedly defied the king by protecting the royal pages from Mwanga's sexual exploitation. These heinous acts and Mwanga's resistance deeply alarmed the British, leading them to support a rebellion by Christian and Muslim groups sympathetic to Mwanga's half-brother. In 1888, Mwanga was defeated at Mengo, and his brother ascended to the throne. However, Mwanga managed to escape and began negotiations with the British. In a bid to regain his power, Mwanga made a pivotal decision. He struck a deal with the British East African Company, agreeing to relinquish some of the sovereign kingdom in exchange for their support. The British switched their alliance to Mwanga, and in 1889 he swiftly removed his brother from the throne, solidifying his rule once more. Mwanga himself converted to Christianity and was baptized as a Protestant. In his final years, Mwanga's struggles continued. On the 26th of December 1890, he signed a treaty with Lord Lugard, granting certain powers to the Imperial British East Africa Company. These powers were eventually transferred to the crown on the 1st of April, 1893. However, the burden of colonial influence became unbearable for Mwanga. On the 27th of August, 1894, Mwanga reluctantly accepted Buganda becoming a protectorate, but his spirit of resistance remained unbroken. On the 6th of July, 1897, he declared an anti-colonial war against the British, launching an attack that ultimately ended in defeat on July the 20th, 1897. Forced to flee, Mwanga sought refuge in German East Africa, present-day Tanzania, where he was arrested. Despite his disposition, on August 9, 1897, Mwanga's tenacity and anti-imperialism persisted. He escaped and returned to Buganda with a revolutionary army driven by a burning desire to free his kingdom and colonial influence. However, their efforts were once again thwarted on the 15th of January 1898. Mwanga was captured, tortured, and in April 1899 exiled. In the Seychelles, Mwanga's spirit remained unyielding. Coerced into the Anglican Church through forced baptism, he was given the name Daniel. Despite a life in exile, his resentments toward the conquest of his people by the British never waned. He urged his fellow Ugandans to continue the struggle against the European rule. Tragically, Mwanga's life came to an end on May 8, 1903. At the age of 34-35, it was a result of torture inflicted by British soldiers and the hardships of starvation. In closing, the intertwined stories of Mwanga and Lwanga, along with the rich history of the Kingdom of Buganda, reveal the complexities and struggles faced by African nations during a time of immense challenge and cultural collision. Mwanga, a young king thrust into a position of power, navigated a shifting landscape of colonial influence and religious conversion. His resistance against colonization and his determination to preserve the cultural heritage of Buganda showcased his unwavering commitment to his people and their traditions. Meanwhile, Charles Lwanga, a devout Catholic and protector of the vulnerable, demonstrated immense bravery by defying Mwanga's orders and safeguarding the royal pages from abuse. His martyrdom, alongside the 21 saints, serves as a poignant symbol of sacrifice and unwavering faith in the face of persecution.